For the next one, we've got Tamamo versus Ajax, and I'm pretty positive that this is Petrick. So Petrick versus Ajax, this is the semi-final of the winners bracket, and it is on DeRosa's Sanctuary. This map, so exciting, so dynamic. Actually, the drops can be dynamic, but I'm mostly being sarcastic because if we hit Control-Shift, that is the reclaim proposition. 175 mass times a ton in the base. There's probably about 35 to 40 per side. This is a lot of mass. Hundreds and hundreds of thousands of mass. And so you see the starting pattern, where there is power galore being built, so that hopefully you have some prayer in hell of spending all of the mass that you're going to be reclaiming. And the fact that you only have 7 mass extractors in your home base, it doesn't matter because those will all be T3 by minute 11. Who are we kidding? Tamamo on the other side, Cybern, this is a Cybern symmetrical matchup, by the way, is doing much the same thing. He is building all the power generators, dropping in some factories, getting very precisely placed reclaim orders out on that engineer. I'm not sure why he has chosen to reclaim the clumps that he has chosen, but he has a very delicate palette apparently, and not any rock will do. It has to be these specific ones as this engineer slowly trundles around the outside corner and seeks to find the perfect delicacy to feast upon before building that mass extractor. So, we're already several power generators deep, building P-Gens with 20 freaking build power, which is pretty dang close to stalling you out, if we're being honest. But hopefully that power will be paid off later in mass extractor upgrades. Ajax on the other side in much the same situation, reclaiming a whole heck of a lot and spending every bit of it. Building, look at this. He is spending 200 plus power just building more power. But it's showing. He is several power generators ahead on his build. So more power to him, I suppose. So that is going to be 2 land factories followed by an air factory. Definitely getting those expansions taken care of before he does anything else. And Tamamo potentially getting even more greedy than Ajax is. No, never mind. He went second air. I apologize. That is going to be 2 land factories and an air factory as well, simply in a different order. We do have an air scout out, followed by an interceptor, so that's going to tell him exactly what's going on if it doesn't get shot down immediately, which it probably will. No, it didn't. Oh my goodness, the bypass, though. So that scout is going to circle around on this base, see everything that there is to see, and then zip back towards the north. So this consistent power lead that Ajax is running right now is going to be very, very good for him as the game goes on. The more power you have, the more mass you can burn, and there is no limit of mass on DeRosa's Sanctuary because, hey, if you use all the mass that's in your base, just expand a little bit, and guess what? There's even more mass! It never ends! By the time you reclaim the entire map, there's wreckage from the fights everywhere, and you're long into the T3 stage. So, yeah, it doesn't really matter. So almost all the mass extractors built into Mamo's base. That is going to be, I am amazed, frankly, that there is not a T2 mass extractor upgrade going right now. That is mind-boggling. But apparently he's decided that he doesn't have the power for it, so he is simply going to continue with his T2 mass extractors. That is going to be a heavily assisted air transport build, though. If we take a look over at Ajax, he is probably going to do the same thing at some point in the near future, but that moment is not now. So interceptors are the name of the game. Oh, nope, transport's already out to the north. That is my bad, folks. So the transport's going to go to the south. I'm not entirely sure. I am entirely sure. Petrick scouted that transport. It pinged across this one, and he knew that it was up there, so he decided to go for the southern uncontested expansion first in order to not lose those engineers, and is now sending interceptors in after that transport that he picked up again on the air scout there. So intel gathering is complete and well done, and that's going to snag him a clean kill on the transport. Although he may lose 1 or 2 interceptors off of it, definitely worth taking that transport out since it will prevent an immediate secondary drop. Oh, look at that. He's actually going to go after the inties first. So with that air control, nope, definitely need to hit the transport. With the air control, he could have potentially killed the transport and then come back from it. But Ajax is going to fight for his right to transport. Although that may be a futile effort because the interceptors will catch it again and shoot the thing down. That is a lot of target switching. Tamamo is going ultra super mega try hard on the air micro there, and I think in return he is going to fail to kill the transport and going to lose both of the interceptors that he sent to the other side of the map. Was it worth it? You decide. 4 land factories already down in the expansion. Ajax playing for a total of 9, which is going to give him a substantial amount of spam. Over on the left-hand edge, Tamamo is laying in more of his own land factories, though his spam shall not be quite so great. Okay, it's greater. He has 10 land factories as opposed to 9. He shall be ahead for all time. Tamamo is getting a T2 mass extractor, the second one, in fact. So hopefully he'll get more mass extractor upgrades as time goes on. And we do have some central base to the left spam going on from a total of, oh dear lord, amount of factories. And that is going to be playing against 5 on the other edge. Hopefully Petrick will build more, because if he doesn't, he is going to get swamp-ificated. That radar is going to be very beneficial though, and the fact that all of the units are streaming in is probably going to result in an overall win for Petrick on the left, though he will not be able to sustain a fight moving forward on the front lines. Ajax, let's get a count on these factories. That is a total of 21 versus a total of 19. So they're actually not far off of each other in total land factory count, and they're building more. But the count definitely does favor Ajax. Tamamo is now pushing 1.2k power on T1 P-Gens. That, folks, is a lot of P-Gens. I think he will also end up with a substantial spam advantage on the right side of the map. I'm not sure if that will be consequential, but it will exist. That point defense is going to be hopelessly outnumbered. But it is going to deny the units. They saw that there was a point defense there and they decided to skirt instead of going through it. So that one mass extractor, yeah, totally. Definitely protected. Alright, T1 transport out, dropping engineers on the lovely reclaim so that it can pick that up and use it to its best effect. Ajax is going to move through the center here with a handful of units in an effort to run by and cause a little damage. Petrick dropping 2 additional T2 mass extractor upgrades, and he's also started one in the back. That one's about halfway done, and this one has just started. So, the good old 5 T2 mass extractors building at the same time trick is going to bring his eco up quite substantially. Ajax on the other side already running quite a few T2s and is dropping his mass fab templates for a 51 mass per tick versus 35 lead. Ajax power stalling like a mofo, sitting on 31,000 reclaim already. Petrick on 25. So Petrick is not only reclaiming less, but is also behind in income. Ajax flexing those eco muscles as he continues to bring more and more things online, including T2 mass extractors in his expansion, because apparently there just wasn't enough mass being killed in his home base. He had to go for the expansion as well. T2 power generator coming online. That is hopefully going to solve some of his power problems. Tamamo just barely keeping his power bar full. on 1.9k power. Ajax stalling for 500 as he struggles to get T2 on the line. Tamamo may actually be able to pull ahead on this since he built far more T1 initially, then went T2 and was able to get his 2 power generators completed much sooner than Ajax. So that is going to not stall his production, which, as we all know, is a very important part of your balanced breakfast. And he is going to be able to build many, many more mass extractors to come. So, with the units in play over here, it looks like he is going to be able to maintain his base, though due to the sheer quantity of spam that Ajax is bringing online, I don't know that he will actually be able to sustain past the next 5 minutes or so, especially considering that T2 is being skipped entirely, and we're going to T3 already in Ajax's home base. Though Tamamo is not far behind, so both of these guys are playing essentially a mirror of the other. T1 bombers coming in, harassing the ever-living crap out of the units on the north. While few in number, the Mantis B, brave they are, and they have the support of their friends in the sky. So maybe they will be enough to keep these units from coming into the base. A bit of an engagement down on the southern side. Ajax with a superior number of units, but they are not exceptionally well placed. Divide and conquer is the name of the game, and Tamamo is going to be able to push him into a retreat into the main choke point. So this territory is his. This reclaim is his, and as we look at the reclaim on the map, notice that Ajax has essentially cleaned his 2 corners of the map. Petrick the same, though he does have a bit more in his secondary expansion that he has not yet sucked up. Ajax sitting on 49,000 freaking reclaim, 113 coming in from the mass extractors, 45,000 from Petrick. Very nearly caught up, but he is still behind by about 30% on his total income. The T2 power generator spam is real. 2.8k power income, and I am sure he'll be going for a T3 engineer very soon to get T3 power down. We've also got our first T3 mass extractor upgrade going into play. I don't know that there is one on the other side. Ajax has already completed one, though his spam is not quite as clean as Petrick's, and therefore he's going to have to do some reclaiming and whatnot to get his extra storages down. Petrick definitely playing towards the later eco game on that one. Loyalist moving into the fray. That is going to be the first T3 unit to hit the front line for Petrick. Hopefully enough to stop this potential little run by here. He is going to lose a few mass extractors on the front, but who cares about that when you got 92 income in the back end of your base? Nobody. That's who, although I'm sure somewhere an eco whore has wept a small and silent tear because he cared about that T1 mass extractor. Why? Why did it have to die so young? I mean, at least it paid for itself, but still, why though? 2 loyalists to the right, 1 to the center prong. Is that actually a rhino I see? Why are there rhinos? I do not understand. I guess he probably had to build a couple of things to shore up the gap as he saw that T1 coming in, but hopefully we see T3, yes, T3 support factories being spammed up. That is going to give him far more loyalist production than he already has, and introducing more T3 to the world is definitely a good thing. But as the game moves on, we see more and more of what makes Ajax such a strong, large map contender. He is raking in the mass, 150 to 125 income. Checking on the reclaim, we've got 60,000 in the bank for Ajax, 60,000 for Petrick, drawing neck and neck on that number. But of course, Petrick still behind by a fairly significant margin on the mass. There is going to be lagging by 10,000 or so mass overall in this game. Let's go ahead and get a count on the units. That's going to be 10 interceptors. Good. Wow. That is way less air than I thought would be built this game. 6 Loyalists, 83 Mantis, 23 Medusa. So let's say 100 T1, 6 T3. And that is going to be 7 T3, 61 Mantis, and 12 Rhinos. So these guys are essentially neck and neck in land production, overall forces on the field. And if we take a look at the reclaim distribution, that is going to give a nice juicy pile of reclaim to both of these players as they are slowly but surely nomming down on the entirety of the map, eliminating what will float their economy for a few more minutes, but not always. Petrick is now doubling down on his air production, trying to get some good inties up in the air so he can prevent his own demise as well as potentially contribute to the other. And we're going to see the second T3 mass extractor upgrade begin in his home base as economies draw ever closer to each other. Ajax starting on his third T3 mass extractor upgrade as Petrick cleans up the entire center of the map aside from this mass extractor right here. That is what has put such a gigantic dent in Ajax's income lead. Over the next couple of minutes, if Petrick is able to secure his reclaim and maintain his map control, he will actually pull ahead on income for the first time this game. And it appears that the hard power stall is hitting Ajax upside the head like a gigantic mace. 1,400 in the hole, dropping his mass income to 110. That is going to be 68k versus 67k income from reclaim. Petrick pulling ahead ever so slightly by the skin of his teeth. Ajax at 50% on that upgrade, but has dropped a T3 air factory. That is the reasoning behind the overwhelming power stall as he gets a secondary T3 PGen online. Hopefully that will reduce the amount that he is behind on. We've got a T3 power generator going down for Petrick as well, who is now substantially behind thanks to that extra PGen there. I would love to see him going T3 air very, very soon, because once this T3 PGen is online with as few interceptors as are present on the map, I can pretty much guarantee you that Ajax is going to try to go either for T3 gunships or potentially a strap bomber or two before he pulls into mainstream air production. Looking at the rest of the map, Ajax did lose another mass extractor up here, bringing his grand total down to 145. 159 mass on the dial for Petrick. First time this game he is actually in the lead on mass income. But do remember that Ajax has been ahead for an exceptionally long time. So it is going to take a little while before Petrick is on even footing, though hopefully the reclaim fields can make up for that. We've got T3 mechs coming online in the home base. Petrick a little bit behind on those, but nonetheless a valiant effort on his part. And he is going for a T3 air factory upgrade as we speak. So as long as he can get another power generator or two down, he should be in a good position to challenge air control from Ajax. Ajax is going T3 air scout first, and then it looks like he is going to go for ASF, not for combat units, which is very surprising to me. You'll notice that both players have gone for Loyalist exclusive mix. That is because on a 20, no, DeRosa's is 20, right? Or is it 10? I'm pretty sure it's 20. On a 20-kilometer map, such as DeRosa's, you are going to primarily value speed and rating potential over brute frontline force in this early T3 stage of the game, he says, as he realizes at 16 minutes and both players are approaching 200 mass income and there's T3 everywhere on the field, and good God, why does this map exist? So Loyalists are going to be able to get to where you need them much more quickly and are therefore more valuable than bricks. As the game moves on, we will see the conversion slowly taking place where bricks become more and more dominant on the field, but for now, Loyalists are the name of the game. We've got paused land factories up here for some reason. They're like 80% loaded with Loyalists across the board. Not exactly sure why, though it probably has to do with economy upgrades. Boy, gotta get those things in. Loyalists moving in on the south side versus a mixed T1 unit, no radar coverage. It's not exactly the brightest thing that you can do, especially when there's a couple of Cerberus turrets plinkety-plink plinking away. Tickling hurts if you're a Loyalist. Bricks probably shove that, brush that right off, but unfortunately Loyalists do not have the sheer HP to push into point defense like bricks do. Up on the north, we got a little bit of poking and prodding going on, but overall the unit advantage definitely belongs to Petrick. It is a 10k map apparently. Appreciate the bits and the heads up. Roey also plasma shouting out. I don't know why I'm having so much trouble with the map sizes today, guys, but I hope you will forgive me. Chat will keep me straight after all. Engagement is looking pretty clean for Petrick. He's got 6 loyalists on the front line versus 1 and a handful of T3 from Ajax. So that is definitely going to be a win in his favor, and looky there, even more mass has been generated. It's now looking like, oh my goodness, there's still a couple of rocks back here that Petrick has not snagged. It is looking more and more clean as the game goes on. Thankfully, all those green dots are fading away. But in return, we are going to have a pincer maneuver on the south side with a huge quantity of loyalists. Ajax and Petrick literally neck and neck on income for a split second there as the loyalists overcome those units on the south side. This is going to be, yes, the shift to bricks. So bricks are going to come online, stage up on the front, and hopefully provide the defense that this base so desperately needs versus these loyalists. T1 point defense being built by the T1 engineers would be a good way to go. And we need bricks. Lots and lots and lots of bricks. And that is, oh dear, that is a replay stall. So either someone is having connection problems in the future, or the game ended and it hung, or we're going to continue, and it's all perfectly fine. Good dealio. All right, this is looking pretty dangerous for the south side expansion. I do not like how this is going. The brick is on the front, and it is desperately wailing on these loyalists on the front. It is going to take a potential specific target could take out multiple because there's a lot of them that are red HP, but this is going to be a cleaning house of the south side expansion. Not a dang thing in the world is going to save that now. Meanwhile, on the north, we're basically playing musical expansions as Petrick moves into the build power for Ajax. There's a few more T3 units on this side, but I think the story is going to be much the same unless a miracle happens. And a miracle may be happening because the factories are meat shielding for those T3 units, and we're down to 6 loyalists versus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 after those rolled off the factories. 8 and 9, they just keep coming. And there's the initial air engagement over T3 mobile anti-air for Petrick. Will it make the difference? That is the question. 4 ASF versus 5 Inti still in the mix, and it's an air win for Petrick. Slim margins indeed, but it is going to be an air win. So that means he'll be able to use T2 drops of his units to go after some of these bases that just got wrecked. He'll be able to build gunships and or strat bombers. Looks like gunships are where it's at, and that'll give him the rating potential to strike out at Ajax. Let's check out the reclaim numbers and eco. Oh my, Ajax, you need some power storage. Dude, that would solve a lot of your problems. 80,000 reclaim on Ajax's ticker, 85k on Petrick's, and Petrick was ahead for a short amount of time on economy, so I think we can effectively call that tied up game. That's going to be a brick drop on the front line in a T2 transport. We got a whaler out, bricks versus loyalists on the front. That is going to be very difficult to stop for Ajax. The bricks are simply powerhouses versus the more fragile T3 units, even as the whaler slowly but surely kills off the build power and the loyalists on this side. May see a brick death over here with the number of loyalists that are in, but most of them are going to stay alive. It's mainly just a need to get a firing line established with those bricks so they cannot be swarmed and picked off one by one. That is the biggest danger here. That brick playing Ring Around the Rosie with those loyalists, not quite able to snag another, but a couple of deaths and a lot of damage to its name. 3 bricks remaining alive, not enough to deal with that many loyalists, but it is definitely something that can threaten the base. Looking back over at the left side, loyalists trying to move up and pick a fight, but Corsairs are going to shred those. And we've also got a strat bomber moving out across the map, even as ASF continues to stack for Ajax as he fights to get back in control of the air. This is the ever-existing seesaw action in air, where one side wins, then builds combat units, which lets the other side build ASF and eventually win air back, and so the cycle continues. Stuns there, laid out by a loyalist coming in from Petrick. He's got his bricks filtering in one at a time, which is not exactly the best way to do this, and as he comes in with the drop, he's going to reconsider, seeing that there is indeed a lot of loyalists over in this direction. He's going to overshoot the loyalists with 2 bricks in a transport. Nope, that is a loyalist in a brick. That's not exactly a good rating force. And also it is going to get shot down by an ASF and a combination of T1 mobile, T1 anti-air and T3 mobile. So Petrick definitely on the back foot now in a surprising manner. Strat Bomber was able to take out a pretty significant portion of the power grid there. Petrick control K-ing off of that land loss. That was a brutal game. 22 minutes of mayhem on DeRosa's Sanctuary. Well played by both of these guys. Ajax simply showing his utter domination of the economy game on most of these maps, especially the big ones. That was brilliant to watch. Petrick did a very good job fighting back. He dang near came back. He came so close to wiping that top expansion. If he had been able to do that, it would have been completely game-changing. He was trying to get his units up to the front faster in transports as opposed to walking them all across land. But in the end, losing those handful of bricks in a scattered fashion, if all of those had been concentrated and made a push with maybe 1 or 2 more from the back line, that would have been an entirely different outcome. But as it was, that fine differential on the land units did end up deciding it, and Ajax comes out the winner. The next match is going to be on your favorite, my favorite, everybody's favorite, as long as you live in opposite land. It is EOTS, Eye of the Storm. If you're ever curious about what EOTS stands for in relation to FAF, the competitors are Turin, Turinbar, and Tamamo, otherwise known as Turin and Petrick. Petrick on the top left, Turin on bottom right, both of them Cybran. We're just going to have to see how these guys optimize their early build orders. This is for 3rd place in the tournament. The winner here goes into the final match in the winner's bracket and is guaranteed either 1st or 2nd place. All right, Turin going land first. Couple of mass extractors after a couple of P-gens. Looks like 2 P-gens, 2 mexes, walk forward, 2 mass extractors, 3 P-gens, air factory. Another P-gen, then walk. So definitely has his build order planned out from the very start. Yes, this is a turning qualifier. The final will not be for another month, for those of you asking in the chat. And that is going to lead into 3 additional air factories on the hydro and an extra land factory. So 2 plus 4 on the factory configuration, with, I am sure, Navy coming out in just a minute. And there is the reclaim order placed on the oh so important 300 mass totem right there. Although I think he may have actually misclicked because he walked out. There we go. He saw it. He walked out and then was walking back. Tamamo, otherwise known as Petrick on the other side, is going 1st land, 2nd air, identical power generator, and mass extractor distribution, rolling into 2 air factories without the additional land factory, which most likely means that he is trying to go for a navy factory a little bit earlier. He's also got early engineer out to the center to try to snag these 113 mass rocks from the middle, which will hopefully give him a little bit of an economic boost. And he has also gotten his totem. We've got a little bit of a raiding party headed out. Hunter plus a scout across the south side for Turin, and an identical party. No, it is not actually. Brink, take that back. That is a Mantis and a scout headed up to the north side for a little bit of aggro prevention. Taking a look at well, nope, hold on. I'll hold off for a second on the individualized view, because we're going to have to use the set focus army commands. I really need a macro for this. This needs to be introduced into the game, or I need to create some kind of macro for that command so that I can flip back and forth easily, because that would make my life so much better. -2, -10, 11 income on Petrick, and 240 power. Then if we do set focus army 1, we've got identical mass, slightly more power, but only slightly. And then his bars are balanced quite nicely. So both of these players off to a relatively even start. We shall see if any of them are able to come out significantly ahead in the early portion of the game. At least there isn't an Ajax here to dominate the end game economy utterly. But if I had to pick a player to go for a lot of mass income, I would definitely have to bet on Petrick, I think. We'll see how it plays out. We'll watch it as it goes and analyze after the fact. So this little guy right here is going to hide up in the arm. That is going to snipe off any hapless engineer that stumbles into the little peninsula there. And then on the north side, we do have a bit of anti-aggro headed out from Petrick. So these two guys are going to meet in the middle, hopefully eliminate each other in mutually assured destruction, and then all of the engineers after that fact will be safe. However, the more likely circumstance is that one of them is going to get off the first shot. It's going to survive by between 14 and 20 HP, and then the ACU is going to kill the both of them after the fact. That was a nice little piece of micro there. The scout actually went out in front of the Mantis to soak a shot, which means that Turin would have been able to kill this Mantis. I think. Definitely now that there are two, he could kill it. But the ACU is far enough over that it would not make any difference whatsoever. Those Mantis would just run into the commander and get smoked. So looking at the early air game, I want you to notice how many interceptors Turin has. That is 8. And then we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, freaking 12 out from Petrick. So Petrick has got quite a bit of an air force online, but it is split. So Turin is going to come in and lay waste to do 2 interceptors right off the bat. And then he's going to try to move over a little bit towards the base to try and get an airlock. After which time, Petrick will move forward and get an excellent turn from the rear, deciding this air fight as it has barely even begun. And that is going to be utter obliteration for Turin's air. I think that he thought he had more. I blame my mouse, he says. I think he thought he had the advantage in air count, and he decided to dive for air control, and instead ended up losing all of his air, which is in turn going to give Petrick air control, which is going to turn into a gigantic pain in the buttocks for anyone of the color yellow, because there will be drops, there will be bombers, you know it. And it is not going to go nicely. Although we may just get an additional air trade, because Turin has been able to shore up a goodly number of interceptors in his own home base, and Petrick did not send all of his interceptors over to help with the fight. So in reality, we've just ended up with a trade on the air fight, and we're back to where we started. Oh, that is a fun time. Alright, so the drop is moving around the outside edge, trying to skip over everything and get into the back. That'll be a nice little bit of harassment for an enemy ACU moving into the area. Surely Petrick knows that the commander is coming. He cannot not know that that is the case. Petrick is a little bit behind in score. Let's go ahead and set focus army 1. That is going to be Turin at 37 mass income, and then 41 for Petrick. So Petrick is a little bit ahead right now. Not by a ton, but by a smidge. So he may be able to get this point defense down without affecting his overall economy too much. And then if he could get a second point defense, Turin would be completely denied from this area with his ACU, because you simply cannot get... What? Excuse me. Mr. Drone, why did you teleport way the hell over there before coming back to assist? I do not get it. Aha! Surprise! I have a point defense! Oh, the second point defense is building. The second point defense is building. And it's complete! And there's a Mantis out. Oh, Turin. Oh, Turin, no. No, 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 no. Run. Okay, good. Woo! And there's a Jester! There's a Jester in! He's sub 4,000 HP! The raid is real! He is going for the straight ACU snipages, or at least to remove that commander from the game. 2,900 HP. There's T1 units moving in. If he doesn't get that ACU into the water, he might actually be in danger. And that is going to be land control galore for Petrick. Oh my goodness. That is a game-changing proposition right there. Alright, Petrick is going to finish his second land factory, totally taking control of this side and netting himself an additional 6 mass extractors secured. So that is going to be massively beneficial for his economy. But do note that Turin has been able to take the center. So that means that he is only effectively... Hold on. Air fight. And... it's too early to call. It's too early to call. There's good turns happening on both sides. There's bad turns happening on both sides. There's fresh interceptors joining the fight from Turin. And we can effectively call it for Turin an air victory. Unfortunately, it was not meant to be. And a couple of Mantis and transport is nothing in the face of a T1 point event. So, with that out of the way, let's actually get a count on T1 mass extractors. So, Tamamo, let's go 0. Petrick is going to be in control of 22, 23, 24, 25, 26 mass extractors. And on the other side, Turin is going to be in control of 21, 2 mass extractors. So that is actually a 4 mass extractor advantage. No, 2 mass extractor advantage. Sorry. Because of the center that is in here. Brink cannot math. My apologies. So, yeah, 2 mass extractor advantage is not as much as I thought it would be. So you can afford to lose this as long as you also get the island. And it's fine. It's totally fine. The only thing you may have an issue with is this lovely thing called, oh dear, there are now raiding potential units on my left-hand side, and I need to get a grip on that. Grasp, grip, grisp. It's a new word. We're instituting a new word into the English dictionary called grisp. It's happening. P2P gen coming online for Petrick. And also for Turin. They're pretty well neck and neck on that. And Turin is actually sustaining his eco due to having 4 T2 mass extractors opposed to only 2.5 for Petrick. So both of these guys are on just about identical footing. And I love the fact that we've got a forward naval factory from Turin on this edge. That is absolutely amazing. This is probably going to result in a naval lock for Petrick, but all he has to do, really, is build a couple of naval factories over here, and he is 100% fine. That's also going to be 3 mass extractors killed, potentially 4. 4 at the bell. 4 mass extractors down, which is definitely a good raid for Petrick. I cannot believe we just watched a frigate die to Mantis. That is a first. We are going to need either a couple of torpedo bombers or a gunship, though, to get this out of the home bay so that we do not have a Navy lock. Pedrick's going to drop a couple more naval factories in the water, just as anticipated with the ACU. Another thing you can do for denial, since you are Cybern after all, is you could go for a torpedo upgrade on the commander. I think it would actually be more use than the gun on this map, since you could just stand under your naval factories and protect them for a nearly indefinite amount of time versus T1 Navy, and even versus the first couple of T2 units that might come about. It would be a very handy thing to do, but he is going to go for T2 instead. I can respect that. You might be able to slap down a couple of triads. He did see that he came out ahead on Navy on this side, so perhaps he decided, you know what? I don't need that extra naval factory. We can just operate on 2 and it will be fine due to the torpedo bombers that I have in the air. Although his air might be running into a bit of a problem at the moment. We've got T2 gunships coming out. Turin raiding with T1 bombers and T2 gunships. Powers combined! And Petrick is going to have to dive with his own air over to the other side of the map. That is going to be roughly even air numbers for both players, but with the combat advantage going to Turin, of course. As I always say, a little bit of meat shielding goes a long ways in an air fight. And by meat shielding, what I'm talking about is that air units tend to prioritize combat units over air units. So if you have interceptors flying just on a move order, they will tend to hit gunships rather than other interceptors if both are in the same area. So if you stage an air fight, people are microing. They're not individually selecting targets. They're just moving their interceptors in the way that they want them to move. So if you have a gunship or 3 in the Cybern I'm sorry, Cerberus turrets. Derp, couple of Cerberus turrets. If you have gunships in the middle of your interceptors and your enemy comes in and tries to circle their interceptors in, the interceptors will waste a lot of firing cycles shooting at the couple of gunships in the middle, potentially massively overkilling them depending on how many interceptors there are. And your interceptors essentially get a free firing cycle, which can, in a fight like this, result in the death of 10 interceptors in one pass. And potentially, you can also screw over the turn of your opponent. So gunships actually have a huge role to play in T1 air fights, depending on how good the players are and how the air units are placed precisely. With that, it is not looking particularly good for Petrick. That air fight is definitely going to be decided in favor of Turin, and that is thanks to the massively assisted T2 factory and then 6 T1 air factories that are building interceptors. On the other side, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and a not so heavily assisted 6th air factory. So Petrick is a bit behind in that regard. Turin, on the other hand, would do very well to be able to getting a gun upgrade on his ACU. Because of the gun upgrade, he would be able to wipe out these 2-point defense with relative ease, and also take on all of these units on this side, which he is really struggling to deal with at the moment. He's also having issues with the north side. So land is posing him some fairly significant difficulties. Petrick has got T2 and will be free to move up the landmass. So we're going to watch Turinbar get put into a smaller and smaller box as the game goes on. Petrick just being very careful at the moment, moving a little at a time, not to startle his prey into being spooked and running out wild and doing something crazy, or maybe control King. No, he's just going to slowly but surely constrict, making it harder and harder to breathe, removing mass potential as he goes. That is not a lot of units, but that is definitely a lot of raid potential. I don't know why Turin is building torpedo bombers right now. I literally do not know. Corsairs would be better in every way, and gunships would be better still because of the T1 forces that are moving in. This is really freaking bad. And Turin's dead. Oh, GG, GG. That is the end of the ACU. It stepped out too far. You know, if he landed a nice little overcharge there for like 7 kills, he might actually be able to pull this out. Oh, snap! He did the thing! The veterancy is really helping him right now. He may still get out of this. 2,000 HP remaining. And he's away. If those units had pursued, he probably would have died. And one more kill for the veterancy. Boink. There we go. 3,000 HP. Easy. Easy. On the northern edge, we're starting to see, I think, a bit of a problem with fuel. Because Turin's interceptors are moving very slowly. They're still able to get off a little bit of a turn. They're still doing some damage. But overall, Petrick is starting to gain ground here as most of his inties are fresh. And that is the toss. Turin bailing out with the disconnect. I don't think... No, that's fair. That's fair. He was sitting on about 35 to 40% map control. He had lost Navy, although he had enough torp bombers to bring that back. And he was running on T2 gunships. So he wouldn't have been able to snipe the ACU with gunships. He had enough to deny the landmass, but with that air fight, excuse me, he was not going to be able to keep his gunships alive. Therefore, GG. That was the only thing he had going for him. Well played by both of these guys. That cheeky move with the freaking T1 point defense by Petrick won the game. The total denial of that expansion, the shredded health on the ACU, and the forward base producing units, those things put together spelled doom for Turin. And that was a surprising move because Turin, I must say, is an exceptional ladder player. He must, I don't know. I'm not going to say he's out of practice because he's probably been practicing because this tournament is a fairly big one. But I have seen much more exceptional play from him in the past. So kudos to Petrick on this one. Well done, the cheeky bastards down there with the point defense. That was well planned and well executed. And that is going to put Turin in 3rd place in the tournament and Petrick guaranteed at either 2nd or 1st place. Let's head over to the finals and watch this last game. Welcome into the final. It is Tamamo, otherwise known as Petrick, and Ajax versus each other. Both are running Seraphim, so a bit of factional symmetricality going on up in here. And the map is Setton's Clutch. My goodness. Brink, get your brain operational, please. So, traditional front slots are in play. Of course, that means that you are going to be bum rushing for the mass in the middle at some point after your initial build order so that you can suck up all that glorious smoking wreckage and turn it into shiny new tanks. And then you are going to be on the back end of your base trying to prevent raids, air, and expanding to all of the mexes that are available to you. So it is a very complicated map to play in 1 versus 1, much more so than in team games. And only individuals of the highest intellectual capacity dare attempt it. Petrick is dropping 2 power generators right off the bat after his land factory. And then it looks like he's going to go for perhaps, yes, 2 mass extractors and a 2nd land factory, which is a brave move, I must say, considering that that is drastically under your traditional power levels that you would go for. But with a bit of manual reclaim on the tree clumps, he should be able to make it work, and that is going to give him a handy amount of units on the front line. On the other side, Ajax has decided to move his ACU up at the very beginning And then he is going to be building back in the base with 3 engineers. So that is a bit of a different take on things. It's going to give him an opportunity to suck up a little more mass at the beginning of the game. But he is going to have a unit deficit as the game moves on compared to what Petric can bring at the beginning. So what this is going to do is this is going to give him a good number of combat units with air support and his ACU arriving slightly after Ajax does, and he may be able to push him out of the area completely, if not kill the ACU. So Ajax is going to have to watch very carefully that he doesn't get tripped up and obliterated at the start. 2 engineers still building on the factory there with 5 power generators down in the traditional build, sucking down lots of trees there to go into Ajax's coffers. This engineer is probably going to tag team assist on to these guys, and then we will most likely see, nope, not power generator spam. We're going to see the initial spreading of the engineers out into the expansions. So that's going to be 3 land factories down. No sign of an air factory yet, which is a very unusual and very brave move, I must say. I gotta see Petric's build on this. We're going to set focus army to 1, I think, is Petric. Nope, I was very, very wrong. So we're 65 in the hole on power, barely balanced on mass for Ajax, rocking 7 income on 140. And then Petric is 11 140, so a couple mass extractors ahead with much better balanced power and mass bars, doing far better than I thought he would be, considering the build on that hydro and how much he did on so few power generators. But he does now see how quickly the ACU made it to the front. The real question here is going to be sustain at the front versus initial mass grab. Ajax is indubitably going to get lots more mass reclaim, because he's going to have, what is this ETA? 1 minute and 30 seconds for the other ACU to walk up to the front. We do have some reclaim with an engineer, but that's not going to be much, and it will be eliminated later on. Versus Ajax already sitting up here, merrily sucking down the mass as he goes. So, yeah, that is an interesting way to string things out. Petric is expanding nicely, definitely has more of the map under his control by not an insignificant margin, and he is already running 3 land factories going on 4. Meanwhile, 6th land factory going down for Ajax, and he dropped his air factory. So as we can see, Ajax definitely has a build that works. Perhaps that is the direction that you should head with your builds on settings. Ajax mopping up that engineer on the front line, moving all the way forward to suck up as many front side wrecks as he possibly can. And he is going to be dragging forward with him a huge quantity of T1 land. So this is definitely different than what I thought it would be. Everything that I have seen at my rank range has been this type of build, where you build up your units and then go to the front. Ajax has totally turned that on its head, where he can not only go to the front early, but he can also get more land factories online, outscore and out-eco his opponent. I'm going to have to go back and watch this game again and blow for blow recap it so that I can use this build order for myself, because holy moly, that is some good stuff. Ajax going to devote himself wholly to the mass reclaim until he realizes that, oh boy, I am taking a lot of fire. I might better actually back out of this thing. These 2 ACUs shall continue their duel as time moves on, and that looks like, it was in fact, that was a transport. So it was dropping off a couple of engineers a little bit closer to the front. If that overcharge was ready, man, that would be a juicy one. Keeping Petric out of the water with the clumped tanks as he brings even more in and wails on that ACU. The objective here is to get the ACU to a low enough amount of HP that it cannot sit on the front and reclaim. Petric, I am sure, is going to build an energy storage at some point. Please? No, he's apparently not. But that is going to be an exhaustion of Ajax's tank numbers. Down to about half HP on Petrick, 3/4-ish on Ajax, with a couple of artillery hitting that ACU from afar. We know how that has gone this tournament already. And Ajax is going to snag even more reclaim. This is an interesting play development, but I think that Ajax may have devoted too many of his tanks to trying to kill that ACU early on, because you'll notice that Petrick now has more tanks on the front line, though he is slightly lower health on the ACU. We're running 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 land factories, going on 7. Meanwhile, on the south side, we've got 8 land factories already in play, with a 9th going down with assisted land. Zlo commenting on the fact that there is no NG to mid for Ajax. I don't think that that is actually a problem, because he again has the unit advantage and his ACU is up there for the reclaim. So what is the problem? I mean, you're not getting additional mass while you're fighting. But if we look at the reclaim numbers, that is going to be a 1,800 versus 4,400. Ajax taking a massive lead there. 31 income versus 43. So Petrick's definitely doing well for himself on the expansion front. But good gracious, that mass lead. That is a huge thing. Petrick getting that transport out early is a good thing, because he's got 2 engineers to the back, greatly speeding up the expansion rate. Meanwhile, Ajax is just slowly getting out with all of the engineers in the back. And this is the disadvantage here, because now there's a T1 bomber that's going to knock these sons of guns out. That's going to make it even longer of a time period before Ajax can claim those. Petrick may have gotten himself bound up here. 4,000 HP on the ACU, completely surrounded by units. Ajax going for the kill again, but in doing so, he's clumped his units for massacre by the artillery. That was a huge throw on his part. Now he's down to 3,400 HP, trapped by Petrick's units, and getting rained on by that same artillery. So Ajax not looking as good as he was just a moment ago. That bomber finished cleaning up the left side expansions, and then the transport from Petrick now doing even more duty, taking the island on the left and going for a drop on Ajax's main island. Wow. That is going to be a veterancy on Petrick's commander, knocking him back up to 4,300 HP versus 2,500. And also granting him additional regen, 6 per tick. Well played there. And he is going to go try to force back the opposing land units from Ajax. Now Ajax dangerously stepping out of the water here. 2,300 HP on that ACU. Bear in mind that the artillery is still firing on that. If he stops for even a second while that artillery is firing, apparently it does not have him in radar range, and they all fire. The veterancy is gained 3,000 HP. Well done there. That artillery can do a huge amount of damage in a short amount of time. Petrick caught on the front line, 2,800 HP, but he does have plenty of units to bring towards his ACU and protect it, and that is going to be even more mass for him to reclaim. Ajax getting a little brave here with that 3,200 on the dial. I don't know that I would be stepping out that far, but dadgummit, you gotta fight over this reclaim, and I think that that is the end of that commander. He stood still. He's gonna take 4 or 5 artillery shots, pathfinding clogs through the tanks, 1,300 HP. Oh! He's gonna get out, 1,200, and oh! Just barely dodging the artillery shots that were headed for his commander. Why are you getting out of the water? No! And you're standing still. No again. 500 HP. I'm terrified to even take my eyes off of that ACU. 100. 130. And artillery. He's out of here. Ajax is down. Completely outplayed Petric, taking the win on that Settings game. My goodness. I don't know why he stayed out of the water so freaking long. I guess he thought, if I don't stay out of the water, I lose. That's probably what it was. But Petric with that freaking OP build order later in the game. See, this is what I was talking about. This is what I'm always afraid of. When I do Settings, if you go to front early, you gain an early advantage and then the other player ends up expanding more quickly. I thought that Ajax, with the lead he had, would come out ahead on that. It really looked like he was going to win it. But Petric was able to get a transport out and a couple air harassment units, which totally changed the entire flow of the game, and then was able to get far more land factories in production later than Ajax could safely run with the amount of mass that he had incoming. That was insane. Well freaking played to both of these guys. This final gets a round 2 because since Petric won, it has to be best 2 out of 3. He's gonna beat him again to take the victory, so winner of this match takes the qualifier and the $50 prize. This time, we are gonna be a little swapped around though. Petric is on the bottom left, Ajax on the top right. We are, again, symmetrical Seraphim. Hopefully, these guys will swap up their build orders slightly, and we'll get to see some new and unique gameplay. But as we all know, refined build orders are few and far between, so either we're going to see a devolution into de-evolution? Devolution? Devolution kind of sounds like what you do to eggs to get them nice and creamy inside, and you know you add mayonnaise and mustard and paprika and all that kind of stuff. But I'm going more for de-evolution, so we're gonna go with that. This might involve descending into insanity. We're just gonna go with that, and I'm gonna get off this rabbit trail. We're gonna actually dissect some build orders before all of the mental things that are going on my brain just completely disappear. So we've got Land Factory, 2 power generators, Land Factory for Petric once again. That is going to be a virtually identical build order to what we had previously, rolling into manual reclaim of the trees in order to balance out his power supply, and going into lots of P-gens up in here early. Ajax is doing a very similar thing to what he did last time. He's walking his ACU forward early. He's getting a second land factory, rolling into a third air factory. He's manually reclaiming a bunch of power with an engineer in order to make his ends meet. He's going to move another one up to grab the hydro and probably build more power generators in the back. And then hopefully he'll be getting more land factories online in the middle. Yes, I know, Plasma, I have descended too far. There was too big of a break between this game and the last one, and I completely lost my marbles. All train of thought, all momentum that I was carrying through casting all of these games, it's all gone. We're just done. We're done. My brain is out of here. Petric's gonna leave his base after picking up the last mass extractor, and then we got third air factory for him as well, though with scant P-gens indeed. So that's kind of an interesting thing there. Looks like he decided to reclaim that and go for more power generators, and then also reclaim that and not do anything. So I'm kind of confused as to what his build is doing, but most likely that means that he is extremely power stalled trying to get his hydro, and he just needs to get it done. So ACU up to the front. Hopefully that doesn't kill Petric later on, and we shall move on with the things. Tank missing 2 shots on the cell in there. That little son of a gun staying alive quite nicely. That is exceptional there. And Ajax is now up to quite a few engineers. He's attack moved 1 out to the back edge, that's getting a little bit of reclaim off these trees, finishing up his hydro, and then rolling into even more production, namely a collection of land factories that is roughly 8 strong in number. Petrick has not queued any of his additional factories up yet, and is indeed building an air factory on the back edge. So I have no idea how this is going to end up playing out, but it looks like both of these players are slightly less clean in their builds than they were the first time around, though Ajax does appear to be stronger. So Petrick dropping 3 additional land factories, probably planning something after that. His ACU is slightly quicker to the front than the last time, but definitely still slower than Ajax. Ajax happily sucking down mass on the front line to feed his factory expansion. And he is building land factories with 5 total engineers. Good God. Man, you are insane. Let's just hope that the power from the trees can float him. I'm actually going to key in. Let's go set focus army to 0, which I believe, yes, is this slot. Ajax is minus 102 power. That is exactly what I was afraid of. With that much build power on the land factories, there is no way in hell that he is balanced. And that is going to take quite some time to catch up on. So what I said about Ajax being a bit better on his build is perhaps not entirely true. Let's go, that button, set focus army to 1. And that is going to give us Petrick's point of view. He is nicely balanced on power and mass, and is doing quite well for himself, though few in number his land factories be. He is pushing a decent amount to the front. So Ajax ahead at the start, thanks to the mass infusion. Petrick definitely setting up to be a little bit stronger through the later portions of the game. Pretty much the exact same situation as we saw last time around. So I'm going to go back to -1, and we will take a look-see at the map at large. So Ajax is spreading out much the same as he did before, and it looks like Petrick is getting out with a few engineers, not building nearly as quick of a transport as he did last time, though he is getting one right here. So we will have a factory to get reclaim. We're going to get the hydro. We're going to get the core mexes off of engineers to get those a little bit more quickly. But in the end, it does still come down to the transport. And this time, to a large degree, both players are just happily sucking up mass in the middle. They're not really interfering with each other too much. They're not going for the early kills, though definitely Ajax does have vastly more land forces at his disposal. Petrick definitely needs to be slightly concerned about that. But for the most part, the beginning of this game is relatively calm. That's going to be a total of 9 factories with an additional 4 planned for an odd number of 13. I don't know if you believe in luck, but Ajax has definitely kicked himself in the tail concerning that, if you are a believer in such things. Then we've got 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 factories planned for Petrick. So very similar. Again, similar to the way that it was going last time around. Transport's going to move over to the edges, pick up as many of these as possible, and then move out to the islands. That's probably 1, 2, 1, and remainder to the island. Ajax is going to come out ahead on the mass reclaim in the center once again, and his very large rolling death ball of units is a testament to the strength of this early game build. Of course, his expansion is significantly slower than anything Petrick is doing. Petrick is going to be stronger towards the mid game, but if he dies, well then, that doesn't make any difference at all. Ajax about 2k in score ahead, significantly ahead on income through reclaim. And once again, Petrick just kind of standing still, taking a bunch of artillery fire for no apparent reason whatsoever. Forgot that his ACU exists on the front line, is just going to be pummeled into oblivion, shedding half the HP on the ACU in return for only 1k off the enemy commander, 2/3 of the HP, and being forced to retreat into the water. This is a very dangerous situation to be in because you need that ACU to be able to defend the front line, because an equal number of tanks with 1 ACU on one side and no ACU on the other side is a hard steamroll in favor of the ACU strictly due to that rolling damage potential. So, yeah, that is a dicey proposition for all. Appreciate the sub, Sigri. Thank you very much. Or Syri. I'm not sure which way the silence goes on those letters. That is going to be a total... Let me actually pull up. We can see exactly how many tanks are on the field and see what exactly the production advantage is for Ajax, as I see how many times I can say exactly in 1 minute. 41 plus 49, so around 90 total units. The majority of them are artillery, which is an odd little mix, but we're going to call that 80. Then we'll switch over and go to number 1, which is going to give us 40-52. So again, very significant unit advantage leaning towards Ajax. Not a fun position to be in at all. If you've ever been on the receiving end of a stomping on the front of Settons, you can sympathize with Petrick. Also, it looks like Ajax is snagging the T2 upgrade. That should be in chat. Yes, T2. That right, well, left arm, as it is. The left arm of the ACU, right looking at it, is a T2 upgrade. By the way, if you're ever curious about how to tell that, on ACUs for the UEF and Seraphim factions, if you scout and the right side of the ACU is glowing, that's T2. And if the left side is glowing, that's gun. And if the center is glowing, well, then you're in for some shenanigans. Might possibly be tac launcher. I don't know what to say to help you at the beginning of the game, but also could be restoration, nano regen. I don't know. But what I do know is that Petrick is being obliterated on the front here. That is not particularly pretty. We've also got Petrick dropping the other island and the opposing landmass. That's going to get down before Ajax's transport arrives. And we've also got an equivalent drop here. So he is going to try to set up a base of operations on the opposing side in order to raid Petrick from behind. I'm not sure that anyone enjoys that, although who am I to judge? Only one engineer on the island, which is very low quantity for what you're actually trying to do there. And it looks like we've got 3 engineers from Ajax dropping, so no contest. That is going to be a death of a Petrick engineer. And then this other transport is probably going to successfully drop over here. There's going to be nothing in the area to deny it, and alas, it shall create some headaches. Now, the ever-encroaching mass of Zooies is moving across the map. Looks like Petrick has opted for T2 upgrade as well. We've got gun going down on Ajax with that T2 production behind it. All that extra build power. One thing of note, if you micro your units, tanks versus artillery, the tanks usually win, but once you get to this quantity of artillery, it is a more difficult thing to say. I think that the land is, generally speaking, identical between these two players in combat potential. The real question is whether or not Petrick can get a couple of T2 point defense down, because Petrick is rolling T2. This is already a T2 end gun commander. So if the T2 finishes, 2 point defense go down, and you've got a little bit of backing to help push that ACU away, he'll probably be fine. If he goes T2 and gun, it'll be equal fight continuing, and then it's just kind of, well, who has better micro and whatnot. But you never really can tell which direction these things will swing. So, oh, never mind. Okay, so there's a T1 point defense from Ajax. I was about to say, did that T1 point defense really come alive like that? Holy cow. But that is not the case. So, one factory already down. Petrick, I don't think, has any intel on this. No idea that it actually exists. We're going to go take a look at the couple of armies here. Petrick has radar everywhere but the place where the land factories are being built. And I have to wonder, did Ajax know where the radar was, or was that by pure happenstance? Because that is a marvelous stroke of luck. We've got additional T2 point defense going down after the first. Those are not going to do particularly well with sideswiping units, and of course the The gun commander is going to complicate things rather muchly, but it is going to give him a base of operations to try and hold from. Ajax, on the other hand, is looking pretty fine indeed, although he is getting raided over here. There are T1 point defense over on that side. He also has absolutely no idea that anything is over here on his blind side, which is probably not going to turn out very well for him, although he is moving an artillery in that direction. Apparently, Petrick completely forgot that he dropped there, so yeah. Probably a bit more focused on what's going on down here on this edge. Ajax down to 8,400 HP, and due to the sheer weight of fire from the artillery, we've got some serious issues holding the front line for Petrick. But he is going to be able to rebuild these. Thankfully, the wreck was not completely destroyed by the artillery as they overkilled. And that point defense will be able to exert a little bit more pressure on those units, hopefully forcing them back even more. Now, these guys, that is going to be a real problemo. More engineers moving out of the factory for some reason, I do not know what. And now we're going to start getting the raiding in the back edge. Petrick currently having a lot to deal with, a lot on his plate. That is no longer a concern. Ajax saw it with the engineer, sent out the artillery, and wiped it from the face of the earth. But now we've got Ajax on his back foot retreating, 3k HP, but veterancy for the 32 regen and 6,000 on the ACU. There's no way he's going to kill that, but his roll has been stopped. He's got a T2 land factory, though, and that is going to be mobile missile launchers headed towards the front to try and break down that point defense and maintain the push that he has begun. So, as always, in the center of Settons, the fight must continue. We've already got 5 land factories online, going for 7 in the rear, and that is not going to be a pretty thing for Petrick to realize that he has to deal with. T1 point defense going down, more land factories in order to deal with this. Petrick realized that something is amiss. He's got units where there should not be units, and this is never a fun thing to have happen. He's going to lose a lot of his engineers, though, which is not a good sign. Several mass extractors going down, more units reaching out to raid as Ajax continues to gain units on the front line. If we take a look at the factory count over here, we have got a 5, a 10, 12, 13, plus a T2, and then on Petrick's side, that is going to be 5, and a 10, and a 14. So identical factory counts, but the T2 advantage does go to Ajax short term in the mobile missile launcher department, and long term, if he starts pushing Ilshivas, that might be a bit difficult to deal with. Up on the island, Bomber has been suppressing this for the entire time, and we've got a single T1 artillery plus a couple of engineers in order to take this island away. That is a good shout on Petrick's part, and he is going to maintain both islands. That's going to be 10 mass extractors to replace the ones that he is losing in his home base as these tanks spread out to kill hither and yon with not really any remorse. I don't know that these T1 tanks can feel remorse, but these definitely do not feel remorse that are on the field right now. More land factories being laid in. That is going to be number 8 going for 11. And I don't know that Petrick has actually scouted this to see how many are in the back. I am slightly concerned. He does have interceptors moving on now, and I can just see him crapping his pants as he realizes how many land factories are online there. That is a terrifying thing to come up against. Ajax, we got 143 mass per tick with 16,000 reclaimed, and then 141 per tick with 16,000 on, well, no, hold on. I didn't press that. Ooh, that is a power stall. 14k reclaim for Petrick, but if we can get out of the power stall, we'll be able to see how much mass he actually has. I see a pretty good scattering of T2 mexes around this base. I would not be willing to venture a guess how much mass income that actually is. Let's see. Lots of artillery moving in, hopefully able to deal with those land factories in the mix, and then I would love to see, yes, a T2 power generator coming online for Petric. We're going to stay in Petric's view for just a moment, because if he gets out of that power stall, we can see how much mass he's actually making, which is an important thing to me. And here we see the biggest enemy of the Seraphim T2 point defense, the hill. It's a low-slung PD with a laser beam instead of a traditional projectile. So it's not going to be able to clear hills very easily. And you got to watch that when you're placing the things. All right, 129 versus 141 with slight income advantage and slight reclaim advantage to Ajax. So that is where we are sitting at the momento. If this is taken care of, Petric will be in a very good position to stabilize and come out ahead due to the fact that he has both islands. Looks like Ajax has actually paused all these factories. He's realized that he's not going to win out, so he's going to be as big a pain in the butt as possible with the remaining units and then forego the rest. T3 has begun on the ACU out in the water. That is a little brave, but seeing as neither player has moved T2 air, I suppose torpedo bomber snipes are not an option. T3 ACU is a weird one to get on its own out in the water unassisted on this level of mass income. I have to wonder what his plan is with that. If it were me, I would go TAC missile upgrade. Because TAC missiles on a T3 ACU are absolutely brutal. The launch rate is so high with all that build power on the ACU, and you can do a ludicrous amount of damage. Now, there are TMD in the base, but basically all you would do is just drop your ACU over here or straight walk it, and then you just start casually launching at all of the stuff here. And since the ACU TAC missile, I believe, unless there's been a balance change, has 2 HP, it might not be that way anymore. I think that the ACU TAC missile could kill this power generator with this TMD far behind it. I'm not 100% sure, but it might be able to. It could definitely kill all these mexes, all these land factories, and cause an enormous amount of issues. Now, on the other edge, T3 has hit the field. Ajax is rocking out with an Otham on the front line. That is going to cause some anxiety on Petric's part because he is barely able to keep his power grid online as is, and trying to go up against T3 units with a fluctuating shield and a handful of point defense is going to be a very bad time. Mobile missile launchers are in play, though. Those are going to plink away at these units on the outside edge and hopefully kill a couple of things here and there, although I'm not sure exactly where that TAC missile is heading. It just decided to go way the hell over there for no reason whatsoever and impact on the ground. Very, very odd placement, shall we say. The mass migration of the Zooies has begun. Of course, when you see this happening, you have to wonder, is it winter? Is winter coming already? But then you secondarily realize that no, they're just hungry. They have consumed everything that they can over in their home territory, and therefore they must migrate to greener pastures in order to consume even more. So we're going to see those hit the naval factories on this side, eliminating them with extreme prejudice, and then probably moving on into the landmass. Ajax right now is rocking a ridiculous amount of T2 mass extractors in the back of his base. I do see Petric with several here. We'll check on the ecos in just a minute. But look at all the T2s. It's just all T2s. He has got to have way more mass income. That's going to be 2 Othams on the front, question mark? No. There's 1 on the front. See, what you could do to be really sneaky is exactly what Ajax is doing. I was about to say, you don't put your T3 tanks on the front line to let your opponent know that you actually have T3 tanks, and then you just casually drop T3 tanks in their home base and wipe out a large portion of their build power and power and all of this other wonderful things that you can do with a handful of Othams. That is a glorious drop, and one that will pull away a lot of units from the front line as that T2 transport returns home in an effort to pick up another group of tanks and drop them in a different location. We've got T1 units being sacrificed to the gods of Reclaim at the moment. And it looks like Petrick is just suiciding into the units here. I believe that he believes that he has lost due to the Othams. Yeah. The Othams are kind of a problem, not gonna lie. I don't think that there's much that he can do about it, if anything at all. So he's loading his ACU into a transport. That is going to run back to the base. Oh, he is going to go overcharge the Othams. That's what he's up to. That is going to leave his front line abandoned in the face of all this T1 spam, which is probably going to be an issue. But in the short term, it's a good thing because he can just go in versus the Othams and overcharge them if he actually has overcharge. I'm not sure that he has overcharge. Maybe he's power stalling? Nope. There it is. He overcharged one, but there's 3 more rising up where those are falling. We're going to go in to Set Focus Army 1, which should be Petrick. Yes, he is on 200 power surplus, not able to overcharge very effectively at all, and now has an entire new group of tanks to deal with. 207 mass income overflowing by 100 due to not having the build power to actually get anything done. We go over to 0, that is 240 income, spending all of it and rapidly expanding his base of production, rolling T2 Navy, T3 Land, T3 on the ACU, could very feasibly start a chicken at this point. This is getting kind of ridiculous. Let's go ahead and skip back over to Set Focus Army -1 and watch Petrick die to 2 Othams. Unless he can vet on this. And the answer is no! Petrick has been defeated. Wow. That was some incredibly strong play by Ajax. Well done indeed. There are so many artillery on the front line. The early rush to the mass worked out for him this time around. It did not the first time, but he was able to back it up much more solidly with good production and good micro this time. He went for the T3 rush that just utterly decimated the base that Petrick was trying to work with, forced the ACU to withdraw, and then there just was not enough power to overcharge all of the Othams. Such a shame, but alas, sometimes it do happen this way. I cannot access the score screen. I would love to click that button, but unfortunately it is not accessible to the observers. So with that, I have to bid a fond farewell to the tourney qualifier round 3 for the Legend of the Stars tournament. There is one more coming in December, I believe on the 4th, so 2 to 3 weeks on that. And then the final is going to be December, the last Saturday of December for that. Huge cash prize available. There's a lot of really solid players that are coming up through these qualifiers. I believe that tournament is going to be fantastic. So I hope you tune in again on the 4th and then rolling into either the 28th or the 29th. I don't remember. There are 2 more segments of this. Thank you for joining me for this. If you're in the live stream, stick around. But for the recordings, that is going to wrap the tourney. Congrats to Ajax for first place and Petrick on taking second. That is gonna wrap everything up for this video, guys. If you enjoyed it, feel free to drop a like and share it with someone. If you want to support the channel, catch the streams, or join the Discord, check out the links in the description. Thank you all for being at least partially insane, and I will see you in the next one.